This telecast is available in high definition. Brought to you by Pioneer's new Kuro. College Football Final is powered by Pontiac.
Two of the great traditions in college football clashing at that old horseshoe. Glad to have you with us on College Football Final. Alongside my Hall of Fame running mates, Lou Holtz, Mark May, I'm Reese Davis. Hey, you guys like games, national championship implications, Rose Bowl implications?
Absolutely.
All of it.
Everything on the line, and since Penn State came into the Big Ten, no wins in Columbus against Ohio State. Nittany Lions in their last major obstacle between them and running the table, the Ohio native Daryl Clark leading Penn State. Freshman Terrell Pryor for the Buckeyes. Jermail Hines comes in and drills Clark. Penn State had to settle for a field goal. 18 seconds in the half. Pryor finds Dane Sanzenbacher.
A terrific job of Terrell Pryor, the freshman, of keeping the play alive with his legs and then throws it down the field.
Aaron Petrie would kick a field goal at the first half horn to tie the game at 3. That's where we are when Pryor, what a grab by Brian Robisky.
Oh, that's tremendous. They had to review it. They could not believe he made this catch. But look at him get that foot down. Great body control.
Very skilled, technical receiver. Ohio State with a 6-3 lead. Now, Clark is running the ball, and what a great leader he's been. But I mean, the Buckeyes laid some lumber to him a couple of times. Laurinaitis coming in there right at the end to put on the shot along with Nader Abdallah. Clark was taken out. They asked him some questions. He didn't get the right answer, so they took the helmet away. They put Pat Devlin in for him, and Terrell Pryor puts the ball on the ground, not secure with the ball, the scramble, and Navarro Bowman recovers for Penn State.
On a big stage like this, and the game with so much on the line and the implications of this football game, you have to protect the football.
But how smart Penn State is, they blocked the guy who was trying to recover for Ohio State.
Penn State on the ensuing drive. Devlin, who did not attempt to pass, did sneak in. Touchdown Nittany Lions. They added a field goal. It's 13-6 late in the fourth quarter. Penn State playing everybody back deep, and Pryor probably got a little greedy a little too soon. And it is picked off in the end zone, and Penn State wins it over Ohio State 13-6. Clark had regained enough of his senses to celebrate in Columbus, as well he should, and so should his teammates. And now you can take nothing for granted in college football, but boy, I'm going to tell you what. This looks wide open for the Nittany Lions to finish at 12-0, and this was a big-time gut check for them. Ohio State's defense really answered the bell in this game, Mark. They played very, very well, but Penn State was efficient enough to win.
They definitely did, and not only efficient on the offensive side of the ball, but on defense they were particularly efficient. They didn't make any mistakes defensively, but here's the key. Tom Bradley shut the running game down of Ohio State, had a terrific game plan going into this, the defensive coordinator of Penn State. Beanie Wells had less than 60 yards rushing as a team. Ohio State only had 61 total yards rushing. When you can make a team one-dimensional and stop the run, it puts a lot of pressure on a quarterback, particularly a freshman quarterback.
But Penn State wins this football game the way they've won it all along. I've coached against them, I think, 13 different times. You're right. They play great run defense. They also can run the football. They don't turn it over. 0 turnover. They score every time they get the opportunity inside the red zone. 3 out of 3 inside the red zone. 0 penalties. I mean, they just don't beat themselves. They keep the pressure on you. They play it over and over. And you look at them and you say, they aren't very good. Oh, I'd love to play that. But doggone it, you go line up on a mark and you get beat. It's Pitt used to.
Well, how about Joe Paterno, the way that he had his team prepared for the football game? Not only that, when you have your starting quarterback, Daryl Clark, go out of this game, and you've got another quarterback on the sidelines in Pat Devlin that comes in the game cold and gets the job done, and actually he was more efficient than Daryl Clark in his football game. That's great coaching to have your backup quarterback prepared on a big game like this on a big stage to go in there and to carry you to victory.
So Penn State remains undefeated. It looks for all the world, barring a monumental stumble, as if the Nittany Lions will finish the regular season undefeated. I know that's taking a lot for granted. No. Certainly something that Joe Paterno would never want to do. He had this to say after the game.
Well, I was happy for the kids. I think they worked hard. I was pleased they kept their poise. You know, we didn't, one turnover was a ball game. And we played the kind of game I thought we had to play. Don't get me started on that officiating.
Did you think he got in from?
Oh, sure. I thought he got in 2 plays before the first time he went in. I thought he was in.
Does it drive you crazy that you're out there and you can't even yell at him? They can't hear you.
What do you mean I can't yell at him? He yelled at everybody else.
Well, you can get on anybody he wants to.
Absolutely. As Chris Berman would say, Joe Paterno's been there before, been undefeated.
Hey.
He's been undefeated 4 times and hasn't won a national championship. But this year, Joe Paterno, the way that he's coached this football team, with all the outside pressures beginning the season, the distractions, the suspensions, he's gotten this team to focus the entire season and come out and perform every week at a high level. In a big game like this, traveling down the road, they scored more than 10 points, I believe, for the first time in 7 tries in the shoe.
Yeah, first time since they joined the Big Ten.
But there are some teams that could be upset. But his teams won't get upset because they're the same each and every week. I've never played his football team and didn't play the same way they play Penn State. They have poise, they don't make mistakes, they play together, and they believe.
So Penn State, that is a major test that the Nittany Lions have passed. Now, how much it will benefit them in the polls remains to be seen, or maybe it won't matter if the teams from the Big 12 and the SEC end up knocking each other off. And on that very subject, certainly Texas, #1 in the land, had its hands full with undefeated Oklahoma State. Check out the second quarter. Horns up 14-7. Colt McCoy feeling the Quan.
Oh, what a terrific job of Quan Crosby of concentrating on that football while he's falling backward, both hands out for the touchdown.
Hey, keep a good eye on the receiver. Okay, let's turn that way. Maybe Colt threw it over that shoulder. No, more that way.
Outstanding.
That was pretty good coverage.
Yes, it was, but McCoy doesn't miss. It's 21-7. It's 21-14 now. McCoy pretending to drop the ball. Oh, he threw an interception. Parrish Cox got it.
Get him out of there. Pitch him right now.
There has to be something wrong. There had to be a penalty. He wouldn't throw an interception. Oh.
Of course there was. Roughing the passer, you go to the face. You're calling that every time. Good call on Andre Sexton. McCoy makes the Pokes pay. Texas up 28-14. Later in the quarter, Oklahoma State able to answer. Boy, Kendall Hunter had himself a fine game. He had 161 yards rushing, though this obviously goes in the receiving category. Look at him rip through tackles. Scored a touchdown on the day. Hunter's 6th in the nation in rushing coming into the game. Keith Toson's not bad either, Coach.
No. This was a great football game. 2 great football teams that played exciting football.
Here goes Toston again. Touchdown, Cowboys. 28-21. Fourth quarter now. 3rd down and 6 from the Oklahoma State 10. 28-24. McCoy drill. Fumbles the football, and Oklahoma State recovers a turnover, an actual turnover. Here comes the ensuing drive, 4th and 6. Pontiac game-changing nominee. What do you think of this play call, Coach?
Well, I think that I would have tried to run the ball a little bit more. They had time to do it. They'd been moving the ball. They've been a running football team coming in.
And McCoy trying to put it away on a 4th and goal. He might as well. His last play was do or die. He didn't want to attempt the field goal, and now Oklahoma State moved the ball out close to midfield, but not quite enough arm from Robinson to get it to the end zone, and Texas hangs on to beat the Cowboys by 4.
They're really good defense. Give them all the credit in the world. They came and fought the whole game. They're a great football team, but we won it up front. Offensive line gave me a ton of time, and we were able to capitalize. We have a tough game every week. You know, we got to bury this and move on to Texas Tech. Give credit to Oklahoma State. They're a great football team. We're looking forward to Texas Tech now.
McCoy 38 of 45, 391 and 2 touchdowns in this game. Last 3 games, these numbers are absolutely ridiculous, particularly when you consider they came against 3 teams ranked in the top 12 in the country at the time: Oklahoma, Missouri, and now Oklahoma State. He's been just magnificent. I know we keep heaping praise on him. He keeps living up to it.
He definitely does, and it's his Heisman. It's done right now. Unless they stub their toe a couple of times throughout the remainder of the season, which I don't think they will, but they're playing at such a high rate of efficiency on offense. Colt McCoy has been absolutely flawless throwing the ball. And not only that, it's his decision-making. When he drops back, his feet are set, his vision's perfect. If that first receiver's not open, he's looking for the second one and getting rid of the ball. The offensive line's doing a great job blocking. But the other thing I like about his toughness, not only his mental toughness, but his physical toughness, because he'll pull it down and run for scores if he has to, or pick up the first downs. And also his leadership ability. He's like the Pied Piper out there. Everyone on this football team follows him. What a great leader.
Oh, you left a lot for me to talk about it. You got a nice mother, nice father. I mean, what else you going to say? You covered everything. He also has a great supporting cast. I think the way Cosby and Shipley are catching the football and the lines blocking and running, etc., they're outstanding. However, they do have to go to Lubbock, Texas this week. That'll be a real test for it. I don't feel as confident about Texas going undefeated as I do Penn State going undefeated.
Well, there's a difference in the level of competition. I mean, nobody's going to argue that the level of competition that Texas is facing is far superior to what Penn State sees.
Why could you just say that's a very good comment? I agree with you.
I'm not saying it wasn't a good comment. I'm just saying, but there's a difference in the level of competition.
No doubt. But Penn State plays great defense, and if you have great defense with you, that's the one thing that can keep you consistent. Offenses can come and go. I know you.
I'm just enjoying you.
I know. I know you do. Oh, you are just a beauty, I tell you.
Well, on the subject of a great defense and great offense, we'll talk about that a little bit later on. The final verdict, you mentioned the supporting cast of Shipley. 15 more catches for Jordan Shipley in this game for 168 yards. And let's not let it slip by. Oklahoma State really scored some credibility points with the way it played. I think they played better defense against Texas than Oklahoma or Missouri did.
They were extremely physical on both sides of the ball. I thought that was very impressive.
Very impressive team that Mike Gundy's put together, and perhaps one that Mike Leach has put together. Texas Tech painted up its game face literally as they went in to spoil homecoming against Kansas. And something that's never happened to LSU has happened to the Bayou Bengals now. What's the Mad Hatter going to do? And Alabama primed for an upset? Maybe not so much.
College Football Final is powered by Pontiac, the official performance machines of the NCAA.
Now, some flat finishes that put Alabama under scrutiny, but scintillating starts give you a little latitude. The Tide outscored its foes 95-3 in the first quarter. Tennessee stayed tight with the Crimson Tide in the first half at 6-3 in the second quarter. Daniel Lincoln from 51 yards out comes up short, and Alabama takes over and immediately goes to work. John Parker Wilson to Julio Jones, who had over 100 yards receiving.
Julio Jones has been spectacular the entire season. Just a true freshman, always finds a way to come up with a big play for the Alabama offense.
Wilson threw for 188 yards. Glenn Coffey ran for 78. Alabama ran for more yards against Tennessee than any team all season. Now, Volunteers trying to creep a little bit closer. Lincoln from 43 just before the half, and he misses. Alabama up by 10 at the break, as it has been in at least 10 in every game this season. Still in the third quarter. Take a look at Javier Arenas, return specialist and coming on the blitz, Coach.
Just an ideal call against a naked bootleg. Quarterback has to check out of that. There's no way he'd get the ball off in time.
And that one set the tone for the second half. And the freshman from the state of Tennessee, Dante Hightower, goes through there and gets Montario Hardesty. And Alabama, rather easily, 29-9 over Tennessee. Georgia and LSU. Mike the Tiger stuffed version, getting ready for the Bulldogs. But he wasn't ready for Darrell Gamble as he picked sixes Jarrett Lee.
A terrific job of coverage. They had the wide receiver bracketed in the front and behind, but how about Darrell Gamble taking it 40 yards for the score?
Watch his eyes here, Coach.
He's following them all the way. The linebacker just read the quarterback's eyes. Great play.
Georgia up 24-17. Here's a nominee for the Pontiac game-changing performance. Another great freshman receiver who wears number 8, Matthew Stafford and A.J. Green.
Terrific job of timing. They've got a great relationship between quarterback and wide receiver getting it done.
And this is the one that brought Tiger Stadium to a hush. No Sean Marino.
It's hard to believe how fast he is and yet how powerful he is. You can see he runs away from the secondary.
Got that ball high and tight.
You know, on Saturday at one point, Coach, you said sometimes when you gamble, you lose. Sometimes when you gamble, you score on defense. There goes Darrell Gamble again. His second pick six. He wants a helmet sticker.
But you don't ever gain if you don't gamble.
And Georgia gained plenty. First time LSU has allowed 50 twice in the same season. They did it to Florida. They lost 52-38. 50 not nearly enough in Florida's mind against Kentucky. They'd get a lot more than that and could have scored 100. They blocked 3 kicks. Here's a block punt as Chris Rainey recovers, set up the Gators for about a 3-inch touchdown drive. You see Green, the freshman, Birmingham, Alabama area, knocking it down, and Kentucky trying to fix his coverage issues. I don't think they did it, Coach. Jeffrey Demps gets another one.
Well, the punter may get called for delay a game. He took so long to punt the ball, but it's still a great effort.
Tim Mastay, he has the human rain delay back there, Mark.
Rich Brooks' memo to self. get a new special teams coach. Steve Ortmeyer is getting the job done. 18 years in the NFL. I guess he just doesn't understand the college game.
Ortmeyer's got 2 Super Bowl rings, doesn't he?
But this is college football. This is the big stage.
He called me on my cell phone, says he need to fire an analyst.
They blocked a field goal, too. I mean, Kentucky was an absolute disaster. I know the Cats have had some injury issues, but they were a disaster on special teams. Florida rolled it up on offense, 63-5. Don't forget, Kentucky was the #1 scoring defense in the SEC coming into the game, and the Gators put 63 on them.
No more.
No, yeah, that's going to change. And now it's going to change the showdown, the de facto SEC East championship game between Florida and Georgia next week. Georgia has a slight edge, perhaps, because they scored one more point against LSU.
Yeah, but both quarterbacks are playing at such a high efficiency rate. You look at Matthew Stafford putting up over 50 against LSU. You look at Tim Tebow against Kentucky and against LSU, over 50 in both games. It's going to be a great matchup to watch.
But it's called the greatest outdoor cocktail party in the world, but this game is emotional. You cannot tell who's going to win the game. It means so much to both fans.
Let me tell you who's going to be emotional about it. Florida, because of that celebration that Georgia had on the first touchdown last year. Oklahoma, the offense is clicking along and humming, but what happened to the Sooner defense in the Little Apple? And Graham Harrell and the Red Raiders went on the road for homecoming at Kansas. It turned into a going home. We'll tell you why.
This is College Football Final, powered by Pontiac.
Texas Tech going where they wave the wheat. Lawrence, Kansas, I'll tell you what. Graham Harrell and the fellows put a beat down on Kansas, and it started early. Harrell finding Edward Britton, 55 yards.
Terrific job in a play-action pass, good separation between quarterback and line, and when you've got a receiver that gets behind the safety, it's a touchdown.
You know, only Leach would put championship hopes on some guy who won a contest to kick extra points, but Matt Williams was perfect on all of them, and why not? He missed 4 of them this season. He had to find a guy who could kick the point after, and he did. We're tied at 14. Harrell to the elf, Eric Morris.
Oh, this is tremendous. They had to review this. Nobody could believe he caught that ball and kept his foot in. What tremendous ball.
Did it by a hair, by a blade of artificial turf. In the third quarter, still second quarter here, excuse me, Harrell to Morris, 35-14. Tech has the lead at the half, and things started to get out of hand for the Fighting Manginos. They had no answer for Michael Crabtree.
No one does.
I agree with
That's
you
a good
completely.
point.
The guy has been tremendous. He won the Biletnikoff, which went to the outstanding receiver last year as a freshman.
He caught 2 touchdown passes, and Texas Tech rolled 63-21. Now, this was the first game the Red Raiders had played against a ranked opponent when they faced Kansas. Now they're getting to the meat of their schedule. #1 Texas on ABC next Saturday night from Lubbock. Then they have the Pokes. Then they go to Norman. Or finishing up with Baylor, and we'll find out then whether Texas Tech is for real. Now, Texas Tech got this game, and they put it out of reach for Kansas fairly early, probably about midway through the third quarter. I want to preface this by saying this is not about running up the score. It's the defense's job to stop them if they don't want to score. But to protect your investment, you got to wonder when you take Graham Harrell out of the game. Kansas got a little bit frustrated later in the game as you see them looking at Harrell and his non-throwing passing hand. And here the Jayhawks are, understandably so. They're trying to sack him. They got to him a couple of times and trying to put a couple of shots on him. At this point, you're probably thinking, Graham, you need to get down on the turf because they had big, big leads when this happened. And again, not about scoring and how many points they scored. When do you make the decision to take a starter out of the game just to protect him?
Well, first of all, he'd like to win the Heisman the more stats he gets because people are stats conscious. And this thing, going into this game, he'd only been sacked 1 time all season, so he didn't think he'd be sacked. You take him out, he's the first starter you take out. You don't take out receivers, offensive linemen, instead of leave the starting quarterback in. He is too critical for their future, but I got to say this. They also want to win the Heisman.
Oh, forget about the Heisman. You're Mike Leach on the sidelines. You look at the big picture. You look at winning a Big 12 championship. You look at possibly winning a national championship. But if you get your quarterback injured, you're going to jeopardize all that. Basically, when this game was out of reach, up 4 or 5 touchdowns in the third quarter, you yank him out of the game. Your head coach, Mike Leach, get your mind out of the clouds. Stop thinking about ball plays. Start thinking about the big picture and protecting your best asset. That's your quarterback.
But sometimes the quarterback doesn't want to come out, Mark. Sometimes he wants to stay in there. And I know you coach the football team. All I'm saying is that normally he never gets injured. He never gets hit during a game. Sacked one time in 7 games.
But the bottom line is that's a coaching decision. That's why you're paid to make those decisions, because if a player wants to stay in the game and pad his stats, that's fine. But if it's going to jeopardize the team and the future of the team and staying undefeated and winning a championship, the coach has to step in and make that decision.
I got to stand up for Mike Leach here. You've never coached. I have. I haven't played. You've been a great player. But as a football coach, you know your obligation to your football players to give them the best chance to win. You make certain decisions. Nobody else on the outside can understand it, but they don't have to. As long as the football team remains close within, Mark, that's the most critical thing.
So if you lose your quarterback because he's trying to pad his stats and you're getting ready to play the biggest game of the season against Texas, does that make any sense?
Is he going to play against Texas?
Do we know that? He could.
Yeah, he's going to play. He's going to play. He's going to play against Texas.
And bottom line, all three of us were sitting there with our Adam's apple at the top of our throats when he was taking those hits.
Yeah, there's no question about that. And I would like to bring up one counterpoint about never coaching. You don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind's blowing.
Sometimes,
you know, Oklahoma and Kansas State. Sometimes you leave your starting quarterback.
Let me write that one down. I got to take that one.
For a while. Oklahoma and Kansas State. Oklahoma left his starters in because their defense couldn't stop Josh Freeman. Kansas State's defense couldn't stop Chris Brown. They're up 28-7. Looks like a blowout. But here comes Josh Freeman, and Freeman threw for 478 yards against this Oklahoma defense.
Just torching their defense. But look at this throw. Just the flick of the wrist. Look at the power in his arm. 61 yards.
Now you're going to see the defensive secondary get fouled up here. They're trying to play man or cross it up. Look at the guy right over there on the 50-yard line, wide open. And that is why Oklahoma's giving up so many yards passing. They're getting too complicated trying to stop everything with the spread offense.
So, Coach, what do you say? Communication's a beautiful thing?
Oh, I think it's a great thing, Mark. That's why we have trouble.
Freeman and Deion Murphy communicate beautifully to tie the game at 28, but Sam Bradford finds DeMarco Murray. Murray had another good, solid game. He scored 4 touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 2 through catches, but Freeman's not done in a 35-28 game. Freeman again putting it right on the money, but this time they coughed it up, and Nick Harris was there to scoop it up after Keenan Clayton stripped it, and Bradford would find Jermaine Gresham.
And this offense has so many weapons, but I love when they go to the tight end, Jermaine Gresham, because he's the steady Eddie. He never drops balls, and he finds a way to find the end zone.
Now, the one thing that Oklahoma could hang its hat on, they did come up with 3 interceptions. That one by Dominique Franks, and Oklahoma would end up cashing that in for a touchdown. 48-28. Have you noticed, by the way, that we're still in the first half with all this scoring? First half. And Ryan Broyles hits the gas, and he is gone. Nobody even touches him. 68 yards.
Do you really think the punter had a chance on that?
No.
He made one move.
Not even a prayer. Oklahoma set the school record with 55 points in the first half. Only a field goal in the second, but that's okay. 58-35. Oklahoma gets the win. Still to come on college football final. USC going to the desert where they're finding the sledding just a little bit rough as Arizona tries to stay in for a fight in the Pac-10. And Terrell Pryor and the Buckeyes, a game effort, a tremendous effort against Penn State. But it's the Nittany Lions who remain undefeated and on course. They hope to play for a national championship. And we'll also check in final verdict. Which is going to win a championship? Teams that rely on great defense, or is that Dave Dunn in favor of offense? First place in the Pac-10 at stake. USC and Arizona. Second quarter. Cats down by 3, but driving. Keola Antolin sticking it right in the Trojan defense. It's a first down. James Trethewey got in late. There was a 15-yard personal foul, and Arizona had to settle for a field goal. Stephon Johnson muscling in.
Oh, one of the plethora of running backs that they have at USC. And Stephon Johnson does a great job of following the line into the end zone.
They would review it, but it stood as called on the field. 10-3. Here's Sanchez getting some pressure. He never knew Brooks Reed was behind him. Forced the fumble, and Mike Stoops' team taking possession on the ensuing possession. Nick Grigsby